What's up, everybody? This is Joshua Yoder, and welcome to the Joshua Yoder Show. And today, this has been an episode I've been wanting to do for a long time. Ever since I graduated high school, the individual that I have here today has been really a big influence on my life and helped me in more ways than he probably will ever know. He is the current Mifflin County baseball coach. Coach used to be my old baseball coach, Mr. Ray Hoppel. What's up, Coach?
Hey, how are you doing? And thank you for that intro. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's very humbling to hear you say those things. But certainly, I hope that you and all the other students and players that I've had have been equally a positive influence on my life as well. But I'm really glad to be here for you.
Thank you so much. And do you like the new avatar I have?
I still have a lot of shirts with that avatar on it, and I remember when the school district was merging back in 2011, and I vowed to never ever get rid of any of my Panther stuff, and once a Panther, always a Panther, and I'm sure that you agree with that statement.
Indeed, I still have my baseball jersey,
Mm-hmm.
which honestly I still wish I had my hoodie because I really like that hoodie, but unfortunately it got ripped up.
Yeah, I was going to say sometimes I still have the very last undershirt that we wore in 2011, and my wife is just begging me to get rid of it because it's faded but I just don't care. It's not leaving. I mean, somebody's going to have to take it away whenever I'm not looking to get rid of it because it's never leaving my drawers,
Yeah, same. I hear you on that. Well, once again, Coach, thank you so much for being on here. And by the time this episode will air, you'll already be back teaching at Mifflin County High School. And
Mhm.
what year is this now of you being a teacher?
This is in Mifflin County. Well, so for me, this is year 30. So, the old adage, that you hear is that the years fly by, and unfortunately, you never believe it until it happens. And so, this is my 30th year teaching in Mifflin County, and it feels like I've just been here a few years, but the time certainly has flown.
Yeah, that's crazy to think because I graduated my senior year when I made the baseball team was 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry if I made you feel old, Coach.
Hey, you know what? I get daily reminders of that just looking around and seeing people I know or just watching my own kids grow up. I'm sending, my son's going off to college next week, and my daughter's starting her first job here this week. And so, I get daily reminders at home. I don't, you can say all you want. And, there's probably been 20 reminders during the day that, reminds me of how old I really am.
No, man, absolutely. I mean, again, I kind of wanted to bring that up. Like you, Coach, for been teaching for so long, and now you have a son who's now going to be playing baseball in college up at St. Vincent, and
Right.
then you have a daughter who's going to become a teacher of where she used to go to school when she was younger. So it's amazing how life works sometimes.
It is. And her, she, I'll start with Gianna, and, you know, she had her mind open to going a lot of different places this summer. She applied to a few places, and, some good leads, some not so good, but, I think that she found where she wanted to be. She has so many good memories of Sacred Heart for when she was a student there, and so I feel like I feel like she's home. You know what I mean? I mean, she really is. She's done a lot over the last couple of weeks to get her room ready, and I mean, even though she's stressed a little bit, as every new teacher would be, she's very excited about this opportunity in her life. And Grady, he had some. He had some ideas of playing college baseball, and then they went away, and then they came back. I mean, he had a very strong senior year, so I think that kind of rekindled that. But one of the things that has always been on his mind is he's wanted to be a pilot, and St. Vincent is one of the schools in Pennsylvania that offers that opportunity. And so he saw the opportunity of the aviation management program at St. Vincent and also playing baseball. It happens to be the only place in the whole state that he could have done this. And so as time has gotten closer to him leaving, he certainly has become more excited. So I mean, for his as sad as it is for me for him to leave the house, because it's never easy when your kids leave. He's probably that much excited to go, and I'm happy for him.
No, that's awesome. And I can also attest to him having a great senior year, having covered you guys a couple of times.
Mhm.
And what position is he going into St. Vincent for?
He's basically going in as a two-way. I mean, he's going to have an opportunity to play second base and an opportunity to pitch, and they tend to overload their roster a little bit in the fall, and so the one thing that they do offer is they offer a sort of almost like a junior, like a JV type team, even at the college level. Not all schools offer that, but some do, and St. Vincent is one of them. So if he happens to be in a situation where he's not starting on their main their main varsity team, he'll still have some opportunities to play. And so I think having that opportunity, even though the roster size is rather large, having that chance, I think was kind of important to him.
Well, and honestly, it could also be used as an advantage, considering maybe get to work around the college campus, get to be used to that, and then maybe eventually then build himself up into the main team on this campus.
Absolutely. I mean, the one thing that's so he kind of bounced around as to what he wanted to do. He was going to St. Vincent, then he was going to Penn State, and ultimately back in May, he decided to go back to St. Vincent. And the one advantage that St. Vincent has over the main campus at Penn State is it's probably a little bit more difficult to get lost in the shuffle with St. Vincent. In terms of numbers of students that are on campus, it's very comparable to Mifflin County High School. So, I mean, it's even though Mifflin County High School by high school measures is a large school, by college measures, St. Vincent is very small. And so I'm thankful that he's going to have a place that I feel like is going to be able to keep track of him, because I mean, St. Vincent isn't just a hop, skip, and a jump down the road. It's a 2.5 hour car ride. And so as a parent, when your kids go to school, you entrust that the adults in the room at those campuses are able to keep track of your kid for you whenever you can't. And so I'm thankful for those people.
No, absolutely. And also, he probably wouldn't mind stopping by and seeing some Steeler training camp.
Yeah, they actually just broke camp the other day, and so they aren't there anymore. I've been there in the past. It's been a long time, but I was there a number of years ago, and I know there's a lot of St. Vincent student athletes that get the opportunity to work the training camp kind of as a part-time job. And so I know Grady has thought about that possibility. Whether it'll happen, who knows? The facilities there at St. Vincent where the Steelers practice, I mean, there's the fields are beautiful. I mean, they're not gonna show up there unless they are. And so in that respect, the athletic facilities there are pretty good, and hopefully, like I said, we get that chance. Maybe we do get a chance to see the Steelers the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, how do you think they'll do this coming season?
Whew. I don't know. I mean, it's they brought in some new guys. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is the one that got kind of getting the biggest headline. But I mean, you have DK Metcalf, who they brought in and under a pretty big contract, and excuse me, a couple people in the secondary as well. And so Jalen Ramsey being the kind of the headliner. But it's going to depend on, in my opinion. It's like anything else. If your offensive and defensive line are strong, you'll compete. And the Steelers' offensive line had some injuries last year, especially toward the end of the year, and they struggled down the stretch. I mean, their schedule was pretty tough too, but I feel like if they get strong defensive and offensive line play, I think they'll be okay.
Absolutely. It's definitely going to be an interesting season with all the variables happening right now. But
Absolutely.
let's talk about you a bit, Coach. Coach, obviously you're a big on baseball. How did your love of baseball come about?
Oh boy. So it's, I guess probably I've always, I don't know that there's not really too many sports that I don't enjoy either watching or playing, and I think I've dabbled in a lot. I know I would say it probably started with my grandfather. Um, we would go outside and play catch in the yard when I was pretty young. And ironically, when he was a high school athlete back in the late 30s, he was recruited and had an offer to play football at Susquehanna University and the coach at that time was Amos Alonzo Stagg Jr. For the longest time, Amos Alonzo Stagg Sr. was the winningest coach in college football history. This was his, this was his son that was there, but he recruited my grandfather back in the late 30s. And my grandfather was always a big sports fan, and especially baseball. And so I would say that's probably where it started. And whenever I would play, I was, it's like anything else. If you try something and you're pretty good at it, you tend to stick with it. And so I played all the way up through I was about 20 years old, and had some very, very good coaches along the way. I don't think that you can stress that enough. Going back to when I was 5 years old, I was playing Pee Wee League baseball. Excuse me, Josh, I got to get a drink here. I'm scratching my throat. But when I was in Pee Wee League, there was a man by the name of Paul Artley who was running the local Pee Wee League, and he was a very good coach. And then throughout my Little League years, guys like, and I'm not from around Mifflin County, so the people in Mifflin County aren't going to recognize these names. Guys like Bill Daisley and Chubb Nagel, they were very influential on me. And of course, your parents always are too. But I wanted to make sure that I named those coaches. None of those guys, unfortunately, are alive to hear this podcast, but they were big influences in my life. My mom, of course, would take me just about to all of my games. And so anybody who is anyone in any sport that gets to where they want to be, whether it be playing or coaching or whatever, probably has somebody in their family that they look back on who really kind of put things on the back burner for themselves to make sure that their kid got what they needed. And I probably can't thank my mom enough for that. But yeah, it goes back to when I was pretty young, and then I've always enjoyed the strategy part of things. And so those same individuals that I named from my days playing, they gave me some opportunities to help coach and umpire. And so I don't know that there's been a day since I was 5 years old that I wasn't coaching or umpiring or doing some kind of something affiliated with baseball. And so, I mean, this goes back a long way. And I guess I'm like anybody else. If it's no longer fun, I'll quit doing it. But here I am, and 45, 50 years later, I'm still doing it. So something must be going right.
Oh, amen to that. But I guess it kind of answers my next question here a little bit. So it sounds like to me, coaching was always something that you always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's one of those things where a lot of times if you have somebody that's positive in your life, especially from a coaching standpoint, but this kind of goes along with teaching too. A lot of times, you don't realize it until that time is over. And I kind of started to realize those different individuals that were a big influence on me early enough that I realized, I really enjoy kind of doing that and giving that back. And so the one thing about coaching, and you kind of see that, you get the opportunity to reflect a lot the longer you coach, and you don't realize how many eyes are on you, whether it be fans, players, whoever. And there's anybody that's ever done any of my games when I've been coaching will tell you that I can get fiery. I'm not going to lie about that. I mean, there's probably some things that I've said to different individuals on the field that I'm not proud of, but at the same time, I would think that the vast majority of my time that I've been coaching, I truly want to be a positive influence for somebody on that field. And so if you're out on the field, losing your mind all the time and acting like a maniac and not really, you want to portray the behavior that you want to see from your players. And so I honestly take that to heart.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. And if you don't mind me asking, was Lewistown your first time you ever got a chance to be a coach, or when was your first coaching job?
So I coached at the rec level starting when I was like 13 years old. I have a younger brother. He's 6 years younger than me. And so I actually started helping his team when he was 7. So, I mean, it's I don't know that I would necessarily call it a full-blown coaching job. I mean, you're kind of sitting in the dugout and you're not really making many decisions. There was a person that was in charge of the league that was putting the lineups together. I would coach third base. I mean, but as far as like a paid coaching job, something that would be affiliated with schools, was actually back at Cambria Heights High School back in 1996. I got a job back there. I actually student taught at Cambria Heights in the fall of 1995, and that year that I was there, I coached junior high girls basketball, and then I also coached JV baseball. And even that 1 year that I coached junior high basketball, I mean, I still keep in touch with a lot of those individuals that were a part of that team, and that's really what coaching is about. I mean, I fortunately I got the opportunity from Mike Culver to coach at Lewistown, and I started as a volunteer in 1997, became a paid coach in 98, and then was a paid coach, a paid assistant all the way up through 2004, and then 2005 to 11. That was my first head coaching gig, at least in terms of high school baseball. But you know, and even from the coaching rank, you know, now where I am, I mean, somebody at that point, you know, I was in 1996, you know, I'm 23 years old, and somebody took a chance on me. You know, somebody in the Cambria Heights coaching staff, the head coach at that time was a guy named Bob Buck, and he took a chance on me and thought I would be okay. And I'm eternally grateful to have gotten that opportunity. And the same thing holds true about how I feel for Mike Culver. You know, he gave me an opportunity to be a part of the program at Lewistown, and you know, you hope you make those people proud whenever all is said and done.
No, absolutely. And you said 1997 you came into Lewistown. You
Right.
worked under Coach John Bell, who was one of my teachers in high school. Well, what was it like coaching under him?
So whenever I started, Mike Culver was the head coach, and he was the head coach through 2001, and then John Bell 2002 through 2004, and they were in terms of coaching. In terms of coaching, they were they were polar opposites, and it kind of goes to show that there's multiple ways to get to where you want to go. I mean, we were in a couple of district championship games with Coach Culver, and he was a guy that sort of flew by the seat of his pants, and he outlined what was going to happen at practice while we were at practice, and he got the best out of the kids. I mean, he really had an unbelievable way of motivating kids, and he was not afraid to challenge them right on the spot. And we had some very good players, one of which is coaching with me now, Dan Kokendorfer, you probably know. Dan was a catcher on that first team that I helped coach at Lewistown. And then when John Bell got the job, John is very, very organized. And I mean, he has practice broken down to the minute. If you look at his practice schedule, and it is extremely detail oriented. And so in terms of that part, he was a little bit different. He was a little bit different than Coach Culver, where Coach Culver was kind of, you know, he would kind of make it up as he went. And John was a little bit more detail oriented. And then John was also one of these guys where he wasn't the type of coach who really got in the face of his athletes. I mean, he sort of put them in there. He was very, very good at putting them in spots where they would succeed and playing to their strengths. And whereas Mike was kind of more of an in-your-face type of challenger type guy, but they both work. And you know, I guess part of the thing about coaching is you have to learn to be flexible, because you're going to have athletes that respond different ways to different things, and different things that you do in different ways that you coach. And for some people, you know, getting in their face and challenging them works, and for some it doesn't. And so, you know, even for me as a coach, I had to be flexible and be able to work with both of them, because I would say that my philosophy probably lies somewhere between those two.
Yes, I can definitely attest to that, because I definitely feel like there's moments where like we're all stressed out and everything in the team, and then all of a sudden you come in and you're like, what are we all worried about, guys? Relax. Or if like you felt like things were like we weren't paying attention, you would get on people and be like, hey guys, we got to focus. We got to clean things up. We got too many errors, stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. And my next question is, I still watch this on YouTube from time to time. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you guys are the last team in Mifflin County to win a state title. But that 2002 season, you were a part of. I think you were the pitching coach.
Yep, I was the first varsity assistant, and I was the pitching coach as well. Yes.
What was that season like for you? Like being able to say, like, not only did you guys like have the run that you guys had, but just the simple fact that it ended with a state title.
So I will say this, and I've told people this before, and people can say what they want, but in order to win a state title, and especially in baseball, just because there's so many variables, and in particular, the pitching is kind of the biggest variable. You have to have a lot of bounces go your way. So the year before, in 2001, we lost in the district playoffs on a play where our shortstop's glove broke. And we felt like we felt like we had a pretty good team that year, and it ended prematurely. But that's kind of what I'm talking about whenever I say you have to have some luck on your side. And so, maybe you get a good pitching matchup, or, a ball takes a bad bounce on somebody in your favor. And so, those are the kind of things I'm talking about. But I will say that year we had a very good regular season. We had a lot of games rained out. I think we only played 16 games in the regular season. So, in that respect, we probably didn't get all the games in that we wanted, but we had an unbelievably strong core of kids. We had a lot of seniors, which sometimes that's good and sometimes that's not so good, because at the end of a high school season, it's, these seniors are looking forward to college. They're looking forward to going to the beach for senior week. They want to go fishing. They want to work summer jobs. And so their minds are going all kinds of different places. And unfortunately, oftentimes their mind isn't on baseball. But this group was so tight knit. They had been friends for so long that they really were very good at not letting each other fail. And we went through our district playoffs, and really, to be perfectly honest, we really weren't challenged up until the state or the district championship game. And it was against Huntington. And in that game, a kid from Huntington hit a walk-off 2-run home run to beat us. And our guys, I've never seen 18-year-old boys cry at one time, and they were, because they had put their heart and soul into being a district champion, and then for that to happen. But I knew we were okay, because the next day we had a practice and they came focused. We were fortunately, even as the second seed in the district at that time, we got a bid to states, and they came ready to go. They're like, you know what, that's not going to happen to us again. And they didn't let it. They just refused to lose. And we faced 3 Division I pitchers in the state playoffs, and we beat them all. And it's a true testament to those guys on kind of having each other's backs and refusing to lose and playing loose. It is certainly the highlight of my coaching career to this point. I can't even describe. I can't even put the feeling into words. It was such an amazing run. And the nice thing is, I've said before, coaching is about relationships. I still talk to those guys. Matter of fact, Jason Cunningham, who was the second baseman on that state championship team, I literally talked to him yesterday. I ran into him yesterday, and we talked. We didn't talk about baseball too much, but still, I mean, those guys are a lot of those guys are part of the community now, and they've had a positive influence on the lives of Mifflin County people. And I think that part, the state championship is great, but there are lifelong things that come out of being on teams like that, and I'm super proud of all of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I still, every once in a while, if I see him, I'll say hi to Zach Smith.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen Jason Cunningham in a while. Oh, I see more Jenny, of anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, I'm trying to remember his name. Kalen Gearhart.
Right.
I still talk to him from time to time, and also uh, Dyer, I believe Dyer, right? Jared
Jared.
Dyer.
Hmm.
Yeah, I still sometimes I see those guys, and then when I went to cover a Mifflin County game that one year where you guys were celebrating the 20th anniversary of the team, to see a bunch of you guys. I mean, there was a lot of you guys there for that. Not everyone showed up, but there was a lot of you guys there to celebrate that special occasion.
Whenever you see that, it kind of goes to show you what that means to them. I mean, for probably the first 10 years after that state championship, we got together and we would have like a little picnic slash party on the weekend that was closest to that June 18th, 2002 date. And I mean, it's kind of gone by the wayside now the last few years, just because a lot of those guys have families now, and they're sort of doing their own thing. I mean, I'm sure there's probably going to be times where we get back together again, but even like I said, those guys, you know, just in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've talked to Jason, I've talked to Cody Zong, I've talked to Micah Anderson. I see like you said, you see Kalen. I haven't seen Kalen for a couple of months, but I still see him around from time to time. And Dustin Maxwell still works locally. Heath Knable, I saw him. His son was playing on the 15 and 16-year-old All-Star team. You talked about talking with Zach. Josh Oburn, I ran into him one day last winter. And Rich Stewart is still kind of around. I just talked to his mother the other day. And I know I'm forgetting people, and I don't want to forget Ryan Kaufman, our catcher. I see him from time to time, and his stepdaughter just graduated from high school with my son. But no, those guys, all of those guys will have a true special place with me for as long as I'm alive. And I know that date meant a lot to them, and that run meant a lot to them.
No, absolutely. And what people got to understand too is that we're a very small town, and especially and at that time too, like, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Zong pitch a complete game?
He did. He in that game, Mifflinburg had taken the lead in the fifth inning, and he was tired. He came into the dugout and he said, "Coach, I'm getting pretty tired." He had a long fifth inning, and so we sent Kalen Gearhart down to the bullpen, and then we scored 7 runs in the bottom of the fifth, and we were up 8-2. And I said to Cody, I can still remember this. I said to Cody, I'm like, you need relief. He said, absolutely not. I'm finishing this thing. And so he kind of found a second wind, and he gave up maybe a hit or so of those last 2 innings. But after we went up 8-2, I felt pretty good, and so did he. And the rest is history.
No, that's awesome, and like I said, I still watch it from time to time on YouTube, because I believe it was what's the channel? PC
PCN. Yep.
Yes, and I think that channel still exists. To be honest with you, I'm not quite sure.
It does. Yes, it does. And I know they broadcast all of the state championships, with the exception, maybe, I don't know if they do wrestling anymore. They may have sold that to Flow, but a lot of the state championships are still on PCN.
That's awesome. And speaking of teams, how did you becoming the head coach come about at Lewistown?
At Lewistown?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, after the 2004 season, Coach Bell he had told me privately after the season that he was probably going to be done. His parents were retired, and they were getting up in age, and he was spending a lot of time with them. And I think, that was, at that point, that was the most important thing in his life. And so he decided to hang up the coaching belt. Even before he was at Lewistown, he had also coached baseball and wrestling at Manheim Township. So his coaching resume was kind of before he even came to Lewistown. But no, I saw the opportunity, and he kind of put a word in for me with the athletic department at that time. The athletic director at Lewistown was Rick Kiefer, and I had known Rick for several years even before that. And so I felt like my resume as an assistant at least gave me a little bit of a leg up for the opportunity to coach, and I got that position, and I guess the rest is history. I mean, we had some very good teams and some very good runs at Lewistown. None none quite as long as and nice as what we had in 2002, but we played in that Central Penn League along with Indian Valley and State College and Hollidaysburg and Altoona. It was a brutal league, and for us at Lewistown, we were one of the smaller schools in it. So, I mean, our schedule was super challenging, but we did okay, and I really appreciated the efforts of all the kids I had. But I was very appreciative of Lewistown giving me that opportunity to coach, and the fact that I got a second opportunity at Mifflin County here a couple of years ago tells me that they at least must have appreciated what I did there, because they did give me that second chance.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it certainly I was happy to see that, and I thought it was deserved, in my humble opinion, of course. But like, going back a little bit, like, it was something that I've always wanted to ask you a couple of things, like going back in 2009. Well, actually, even further back than that, I would say 2007 was when I tried to start, tryouts, trying to make the team and all that stuff. And to be fair, and I've admitted this on my blog post, I wasn't the best athlete, and and honestly, I wasn't even in the best mindset at that time. I was going through a lot of stuff mentally, and I was trying to make the team. My first two attempts didn't work out. I failed my first time, and then my junior year, I went, and you guys asked me to be a game manager with my cousin Drew. Do you remember Drew?
I do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I did that, and then going into my senior year, just honestly, looking back on it, I'm trying not to get all emotional about it, but I was done. I really was done going into my senior year, because I was so depressed, and I was coming off a pretty, well, let's just say I was coming off a pretty bad summer, where I was given some information that I wasn't really, like, I was kind of aware of it, but I wasn't like exactly sure what was going on. And then, being told that, it may not be a good idea for me and my twin to drive, kind of like put the wind in my sails a little bit. So, and plus I wasn't used to understanding high school, and I was struggling with school. But anyway, going into my senior year, I was like, you know what, I'll just try to make the baseball team again, see if it works out. Probably not going to make it, but at least I get to hang out with the guys, I guess. And then all of a sudden I get pulled into the office by you guys, and you guys offered me a spot on the team. And I was kind of wondering, like, what made you guys want to do that?
Well, there tends to be a lot of decisions from a coaching standpoint that change from year to year. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of one that is completely unrelated to you, and then I'll come back to yours. So one year we had a class that was very, very, very senior heavy, and they were all pretty good players. And we had also some very good juniors, but a very small sophomore and freshman class. Now, normally, and you know this from being through the program at Lewistown, if you're a junior or a senior, you're expected to be on the varsity team. If you're a sophomore or a freshman, you're probably going to be on the JV, but you could earn your way to play varsity. And so we didn't have any sophomores or freshmen that were playing varsity at that time, because the senior class was so heavy. But we had some juniors who were good players, but were not going to see the field. It's just one of those things where, based on numbers, it was going to be tough. And so one of the things that I've always tried to do my best is to be upfront with players. And, I've been to lots of meetings, I've coached with lots of people, and I've heard coaches blow sunshine up, other coaches blow sunshine up kids' backsides and say, oh, you're going to play here, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. Well, then the kid doesn't, and then now you have a problem, and then the kid's upset, and the parents are upset, and, the coach finds himself in a little bit of a pickle. Well, I asked this junior if he would be willing to play several juniors. It wasn't just one of them, but several juniors, if they were willing to play JVs. And there were some of them that told me no, they really didn't want to do that. They didn't want to play JV. And then they were asking why. And I told them, because right now you're probably not going to play a lot of varsity, but next year you're really going to be counted on. And I want you to be able to play and not just sit the bench. And so when they heard that, some of them changed their minds, but some of them didn't. But I gave a reasoning as to why. And so, um, in your case, one of the things that we talk about sometimes as coaches, and this is big on your part, and this is something that I feel like is a gigantic life lesson for anybody that's high school age, or even before that. But I think high school is one of the first places where a lot of times people face their biggest adversity. Um, and for you, it was perseverance. I mean, here's a guy, I remember talking to Coach Yoder saying to myself, here's a guy who tried out all these years, kind of found himself with, he found himself getting cut these couple of years, but all of a sudden now we have a situation where, we have an opportunity to allow him to be a part of the team. And, as coaches, we talk about persistence paying off. Well, why it's hard for me to preach persistence without me showing it. Do you understand where I'm going with that?
No, I totally get where you're going with that, Coach.
So it's kind of the practice what you preach things, and we saw it as a great opportunity. You know what? Here's a guy that has really done everything he can possibly do to be a part of our team. And whenever we kind of told you up front, I believe that we weren't sure how much you were going to get the opportunity to play, but you've worked hard enough that you deserved a spot. And so for us, that was something that we chose to do. And I know you personally, you loved that opportunity. And I can still remember you giving me a hug when you came off the field after you batted at Blair County Ballpark. I don't know if you still remember that.
Oh, Coach, you have no idea how much I remember from that year. Oh man, it really, oh gosh, it really saved my life at that point, because I was going through a lot mentally, and still am, but that really saved my life, Coach. Like I said in the post, my only regret was, I wish I knew how to interact with people more, better.
Mhm.
'Cause I still struggle with that, and that's kind of why I do this podcast. But I can't thank you guys enough for that. I really can't. Like, oh,
Well,
geez.
I know that Coach Keith Yoder and I have talked about this on several occasions, and it's you just don't know what other people are going through. And obviously you've been open enough about this to talk about it, which is definitely admirable. And I know you haven't given a tremendous amount of detail, and you don't owe anybody that. But um but yeah, it's you just don't know the battles that are behind things. And sometimes it's to us it was a small gesture, but to you it obviously meant everything. And now here you are with your blog and your podcast, and to say that I'm proud of what everything you've done. And I'll even include the writing. I mean, going back, 15 years when I'd be refereeing a basketball game and be standing there, and you'd come talk to me, and you know you want all of your players to go on and become successful, and you want them to do things that that are going to make you proud as a coach. And Josh, I can say that I am super proud at all of you have become, and all that you have done, because and if I was a small part of that, I am deeply honored for you to say that.
No, I mean, it is. I mean, like, basically, like, for those of you that don't know, like, and I've talked about it on an episode with my twin. Like, I was born with scoliosis, cerebral palsy, and I've been kind of struggling as I got older, and just trying to make ends meet and stuff like that, and I just want to try to, like, do the best I can, and writing and all that stuff. And I've been wanting to try to do what you did for me, Coach. Hope to inspire somebody, and 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 like you talk about that year, like I do remember like that, like, and I do remember you saying, like, hey, we'll try to put you in as much as we can. You were upfront with me about that, and I knew that, but I just was, thankful to be able to do that. And, we won the Altoona Curve Classic, which was probably the highlight. I mean, I know BMO, when I posted that blog post, a lot of the guys reached out to me. BMO was like District 6 champs forever, like I really appreciated everyone reaching out and doing that. And honestly, like that meant a lot to me that year. And I can't thank you, Coach Yoder and Lisa, enough for that, and
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, we talk about it often, and you are also high on my current team's list. I know when you guys brought those peanut butter eggs to practice last year, I don't know, you might have set the bar. They might be expecting those again this year. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a heads up because I know they devoured those things. So they certainly know who you are, and I've told them your story. I didn't tell them a bunch of details, but I told them what I know, some of the things that I know, and I know that they have a fondness to you that I do as well.
Well, I appreciate that, Coach. Yeah, I thought about the peanut butter eggs the other day, actually. But well, no, it's funny, and actually, I'll actually call out someone who's actually going to be on your team this coming year, Jaden Smith. A little side note: I help out cover a baseball team with Evan Popo, and
right.
And Jaden got to play on the team, and I talked to him about that, and we talked about actually coaching. He asked me about you, and what was it like for me playing under you, and I told him it was probably one of the really like the only time when I look back at my high school, I'm like, I can smile about, because that really saved, like I said, it saved my life. I'm not just saying that because you're here. It's the truth, and we talked about coaching and all that stuff. And he's like, you ever thought about coaching? And I said, well, I actually helped coach a few things before, but I've always thought it'd be kind of cool to coach, but never thought it was possible. Mainly because just the time, and I don't really have the finances to really go out and do that stuff. But like, I would love to like been able to like help out and maybe be an influence some way like you did to me. And it was definitely like just little side notes like that just brought a smile to my face because it really is cool to see, like, and I appreciate the story that the kids are definitely thankful for the peanut butter eggs and me, I guess.
Yeah, they because if you remember, you just said that you had something for me. You didn't really say what it was, and then you brought these peanut butter eggs, and I had shared a story with you, about a peanut butter egg at some other point, but and then you brought those in, and you saw how they gobbled those things up, and so like I said, any high school kids like to see real, true life stories of people that have accomplished their goals or they've overcome adversity, and you are certainly an example of that to them. So like I said, and as a coach, everybody's got their own adversity. It's not the same thing. It comes in different levels, but as a coach, you hope that you can at least be there and do your best to be of assistance to somebody that might need your help, whenever that time arises.
Speaking of adversity, and again, it just shows how much like you mean to me in my life, Coach, and like Coach Yoder and Leister. Again, like for those who may not know you, you weren't only a baseball coach, you also were a teacher there at Lewistown High School.
Yes.
And one of the things that I look back on my senior year, especially, was we heard rumors of the possible merger when I was graduating, and at the time I didn't really care because I was going through some stuff mentally, but then when I heard that the schools were merging, I was legit scared for you guys. I wasn't sure if you guys were going to be out of a job, because I was like, wait, they're actually going to merge the schools? Like, what's going to happen to all the teachers? And you were certainly on my prayer list, and I was like worried about you guys. And I was like, there's something I've always wanted to ask you. What was your mindset when you heard the rumors of things going like that?
So the rumors really started to get legs, I would say, probably in like the fall of 2010. We had a new superintendent, and in 2008 there were major there were we went. You probably have read that, the country went through a recession, and there was a lot of reasons why schools weren't getting their money. I'm not going to get into a political discussion, but turns out we were several $1,000,000 in the hole in Mifflin County, and they were trying to find ways to try to make up this budget deficit. And one of the ways was to merge, to have, just one high school. And it wasn't just that. I mean, they closed. I know I'm probably going to miss one somewhere, but they closed Strodes Mills Middle School. They closed. Eventually, they closed Union Elementary. It didn't close right away, but they closed that. They closed Highland Park, Brown Elementary, Armaugh, and so there were a number of schools that got the axe. And all in all, there were about 125 teachers that were that were laid off. Now, many of them were called back, but in that initial purge, if you want to call it that, there were about 125 teachers that ended up losing their jobs. And fortunately, I was one that did not. I had enough time that I was able to survive that. But it was very difficult. I mean, and not to mention, you had kids that were going to be going to new schools with people that they didn't know. You had adults that were going to be working with different people, because a lot of the faculty of the current Mifflin County High School was made up of people from 4 different buildings. I mean, there were people there from Indian Valley Middle School, Indian Valley High School, Lewistown Middle School, Lewistown High School. I don't know if there may have even been 1 or 2 from Strodes Mills Middle. But I mean, there were teachers coming in from all over the place. So it was definitely, it was different for us too. And so, like I said, I was fortunate to survive that. There were a lot of people that were not. They had to find employment elsewhere because they maybe only had been in the district for a year or so. And then came the sports aspect of things. You're going from 2 teams down to 1, and those spots became highly competitive. And so there was certainly some animosity between kids and families and coaches. And I had taken my name out of the running for the baseball coach of the new school, because at that point my kids, my own children, were 8 and 4, and they were kind of starting to get into their own activities. And it's important. It was important for me to be at those things with them. And so I didn't put my name in, but Travis Zook was the first head coach of the Huskies baseball team, and I believe there were around 100 kids that signed up for baseball, and you had to get that down to 30. And some of the kids that were cut were kids that started for me the year before, and so I look back on that, and I certainly don't envy anybody that was coaching at Mifflin County those first year or two, just because of the fact that, I mean, it was so competitive. And I think there was definitely some people on edge regarding the sports, but it doesn't seem to be quite that way now. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still pressure that comes with sports, but if it was too much, I wouldn't do it, and neither would anyone else. But it's certainly changed a lot since that first year.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I'm thankful that you guys were able to, stay employed and stuff, because that was just weird. Because like when I heard about that, I was like I said, I was scared for you and like a lot of other people, and I'm just like, man, like I don't know how I feel about this, but but like it sounds like it got pretty chaotic there, at least for like the early years.
Yeah, it was the first year was a learning experience for everybody. I mean, I know the junior high and the high school, there were several there were several fights, especially early on in the year. But now the way things are now, there's nobody left that had to change schools. So everybody that was a part of that merger has now graduated. So the kids that are in the school system now have only known Mifflin County School District and not the separate high schools.
No, I'm glad to hear it. And then obviously you didn't become a head coach till a little later, but what were you doing around that time? I know you were helping out with the softball team as well. What was that experience like?
Or are you talking like at the start of Mifflin County? You mean like back in like
Yeah,
2011? Okay, so
yeah.
back at that point, my daughter was playing. She was playing locally at, for the rec team at Strode's Mills. Um, my my son was just starting to play t-ball, so I was kind of more involved with that than anything else. So I didn't get back into coaching at the school level until about 2016, and my daughter at that time was in seventh grade, and so I helped. They needed some help on the junior high aspect of the softball program, and so I was coaching junior high softball. Craig Weston asked me to help, and so I started coaching junior high softball, and then stayed on the softball end of things until 2020. I was actually still a volunteer in 2022, although I wasn't quite involved as much then, just because my son was starting to play JV baseball at that time. So I sort of did what I could, and then 2023, I was an assistant JV coach with Bailey Hetrick and Josh Nichols, and then when Coach McGonigal left, then I was hired in. So my first year coaching the high school team in Mifflin County was spring of 2024, and then of course this past year. So this coming spring will be my third year with the Huskies as the head coach.
No, and honestly, I was real happy to see you get the job, coach. And I mean, honestly, I was wondering if you would throw your name in the hat when McGonigal was, when he left, because I saw that your name was in the running, and I remember we kind of had a little conversation about it. Like I think it was at Southside, and you
Yeah, I
had
remember
said,
that.
yeah, because like you had mentioned, you're like, I wanted to throw my name in the hat, but you had a son named Grady, and you weren't quite sure if was he okay with you cover, like what was that conversation like?
Well, and that was that. I mean, so if he would have, if I would have asked him, do you want me to coach, and he would have said no, that would have been the end of it. End of discussion. Like I wouldn't have tried to coerce him in any way. The good news with him is he's had me as a coach at least at every level at some point. Now at that point in high school, he didn't as a freshman. He did as a sophomore, but um, I had coached him in Pee Wee League and in Coach Pitch and in majors and in Babe Ruth and travel. So he had I had been his coach for a long time, and he was still playing. And his response to me was, "Well, if you don't coach, who will?" And so I said, "Does that mean that you want me to do this?" And he said, "Well," he goes, I know some of the people that are doing it, and I would rather have you than them." I said, "Okay, that's kind of, not everybody enjoys playing for a parent, and it's certainly not easy to coach your kid." And so, I have to give Grady a lot of credit because, and Gianna even before that. I mean, because it, when you're in the dugout and when you're on the field, normally the parents are, they're out in the stands or they're out in the chair and they're watching the game, and you kind of get that time away, and it's not news that sometimes parents can be a little bit tough on their kids, and myself included. I'm sure there were times where I was pretty tough on my own, but at the same time, you have to separate that and say, okay, he's just one player on the team, and so you try not to favor one way or to over criticize either. So I will say that my opinion, I feel like coaching my kids has made me a better coach, just because it causes you to focus, to separate coach from dad, and it takes work. It's not something that happens easily, and I'm very thankful that both of my kids have were okay with me coaching them, and I've certainly enjoyed that opportunity to spend that time with them, because not everybody gets that.
No, absolutely. And you don't have to name names, but I was also just curious, was there how many other people besides yourself was gunning for that position?
From what I remember, there were four, and I won't name names, but that's those. I mean, that's what I heard. So I can't even confirm there were four applicants. That's just what I had kind of heard. But That's about as far. I mean, I know one or two names for certain, and I won't share those on here. But I had heard four.
I see. You know, going into your first year as Mifflin County head coach, and honestly, I was so happy to see it. Your first year, you were able to win a District 6 title. I mean, what was that year like for you?
It was different because a lot of those guys that were on that senior group, there were quite a few that I had coached, but there were quite a few that I didn't either, and it was a very very big class, and the biggest thing we had to overcome was that even though a lot of the members of that class were on the World Series team that went to Eagle Pass, that same success hadn't really translated at the high school level at that point. And as an assistant coach in 2023, I was able to be in the dugout for a few games, and you could kind of see that they didn't have a lot of confidence. And so to me, that was kind of the first step. We have to build up the confidence in these guys and help them believe that they can win. Um, and to me, there was a clear turning point in that season, and it was a home game against Cedar Cliff. In that year, first of all, ourselves and Cedar Cliff shared the league. We were co-champions, and so the game I believe was 3-3, and there was a call that had gone against us. And when I say a call against us, I'm not just, crying the blues. I'm just saying that it went against us, and you could see our kids putting their heads down, and it gave Cedar Cliff second and third and nobody out. And I went out to talk to the pitcher, who at the time was Landon Eichhorn. And I remember the conversation was very, very positive, and it was everybody in the infield at that time, which I believe it would have been Xavier Smith, Madden Weaver, Tucker Gill, Jaden Smith, and Ryan Kanegi. And I remember looking them in the eye and not like losing my mind and trying to be the voice of calm. And one of those guys, I can't remember who, but they kind of point to that and said, well, when you were calm, that helped us. And fortunately, Landon got, I think, a pop up, a strikeout, and a strikeout, and we got out of that inning, and we ended up winning it on a walk-off bunt, believe it or not, in the bottom of the seventh. And we were 1-3 at the time, and at that point, I believe we won 10 in a row. And that's kudos to those guys. And that was the perseverance and the kind of the overcoming of the confidence issue that we really needed, because once they realized that they could get out of that sticky situation, they really took it to heart, and they kind of put their foot on the pedal and really kind of it really that led us to where we were going to go that year.
I was so proud of you, Coach. You have no idea. I was so proud of you guys and the kids when you guys won the district title. I was really happy to see you guys do that. But my next question I kind of wanted to ask you, obviously there was a difference between when you coached at Lewistown and Mifflin County. Like, explain to some people the difference between the two leagues that you coached.
So when I was at Lewistown, the league was the Central Penn League, and the Central Penn League was made up of 14 schools all around Central PA, and some of them, the smallest school in that league was Penns Valley, and the biggest school in that league was either Altoona or State College. I'm not sure which one's bigger. I think State College is a little bigger now, although at that time I think maybe Altoona may have been. But the only quad A, or at that time, because there was only 4 classifications at that point, the only quad A schools in that league at that time were State College, Altoona. Hollidaysburg was kind of teetering. I think they were a quad A school at that time, and Williamsport. And so we played Punxsutawney and DuBois and Clearfield, Huntington, Bald Eagle. I know I'm going to miss a couple here. Phillipsburg. But anyway, it was top to bottom. It was as solid league as you could find. Now the Commonwealth that we play in now, we're actually one of only, I believe, 3 sports that play that still play in the Commonwealth. The other teams in Mifflin County have all bumped down to either the Keystone or the Colonial. We're in the Commonwealth, so is softball, and I believe wrestling. But in the Commonwealth, it is the biggest 6A schools in District 3. And so we're playing Central Dauphin and Chambersburg and Cumberland Valley and Mechanicsburg. State College and Altoona, of course, are in that league too. And there's one school I'm missing, but Cedar Cliff. How could I miss them? They won the state title this year. But but I mean, you're talking the best of the best that conference can offer, and that's 16 of our 20 games. And so, there's been a lot of accolades in Mifflin County baseball over the last 50 years, primarily at the Babe Ruth level. And you see a lot of Babe Ruth teams that, win state titles and go to Mid-Atlantic regionals and do well and make a World Series. But that's, if we compare Babe Ruth to high school baseball, it's apples and oranges. They are two totally different things. And Babe Ruth's success definitely does not translate to high school success. And I've told the kids, if you want to get to where you got in Babe Ruth, you're going to have to work twice as hard for half as much. And it truly is a gauntlet in that league. And last year we won 10 games in that league, and the year before we won 14. Before that, I think we had only won 14 ever in our school's history one time. And so we've gone back to back double digits in that league, which I don't know that we've done once in our school's history. So I'm proud of these guys. They've worked hard. I demand a lot, but this league is tough. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I mean, Cedar Cliff pounded us twice this year. And I remember after I talked to the boys after those games, I said, I pointed to them. I'm like, that's what we aspire to be. And if we can, we have a pretty solid group coming back this year, and I'm sure they have expectations of themselves, but we haven't won anything yet. And we're going to have to work really hard to get where we want to be this year.
Yeah. And talk about going through another different thing. You guys have gone from coaching on natural grass to now artificial turf. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like for you?
Well, ironically, everybody thinks that when you play on turf, the game's a lot faster. Well, I beg to differ, at least initially, because the first game we played on that turf was against Altoona, and they had 3 infield singles in the first inning. The turf is still the turf that we play on in baseball is a little bit higher than what they play on whenever you're playing football or field hockey or soccer. The turf is a 1/4 inch longer on the baseball field. So it actually plays like grass. It truly does. I mean, the field we had before, the natural grass surface, I'm not going to lie, it was a death trap, especially at third base. There were a lot of undulations, and guys were getting hit in the face, and they would try to play everything to the side, and who could blame them? I mean, it was, like I said, it was rough, but this definitely allows our infielders to have good fundamentals, and they stay down on balls, and it's hopefully going to allow us to play more games in ugly spring weather. But at the same time, I'm hoping it allows us to develop better habits, because we can trust the hops are going to be true.
No, I can definitely attest to that. I got to cover you guys against Mount Union up in the new field, which I got to be honest with you, I thought I was walking on carpet. It felt so weird stepping on that thing. And I remember one particular play. Mount Union had a kid on first, Nazir, I believe his name is.
Yes, I remember that.
He went to steal second, and I think it was Elliot Yetter who was your catcher.
Man, yeah, it's either him or Easton. I can't remember which one was catching at that time.
But yeah, you had a catcher, and he threw him out. But the problem was, he tried to slide in head first and second base, and I wouldn't call it exactly a slide. It was probably more of a thump. And he got.
I remember that play very well, only because I believe Mike Goss took a picture of that on the day he was there, and Grady was playing second base. And I remember in the picture, I think Nazir's kind of on his face, and his backside is coming up over his head. So, yeah, I remember that play completely.
I was like, I can hear the the shouting cries of Nick Imperioli from beyond the grave. And if anyone knows Nick or been around Mount Union, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that, because I was like, oh man, Nick would not be happy with that one right there.
No. He was certainly one of the best things to happen to Mount Union athletics for sure. He was a friend of mine, and especially when I was coaching at Lewistown. Hadn't talked to him really much recently, but I know when I was coaching at Lewistown and we were looking for some scouting reports on teams that they would play. Every now and then we would run into a Tyrone in the district playoffs or Central. He was always super friendly with me and would help out when needed, and we would always exchange the favor if he ever had to play the likes of a Bald Eagle or a Penns Valley. I don't know. I know how many games he's won in baseball. I mean, I want to say it's in the 700s. But
760 something, I believe.
Yeah. Honestly, I would have to coach for 200 more years to get to that. So he certainly had an amazing run, and he's definitely going to be missed. Although I will say that since he's retired, Tim Hicks has certainly made it look easy. It's never easy to replace a legend, but Tim has won a state title, and he was in a state semifinal this past year, and the Mount Union baseball tradition just continues.
Oh, absolutely. I remember talking with Tim, which that episode will be airing here real soon. I promise you. But yeah, no, I'll give a little sneak preview. Like he definitely felt the pressure. I will say that.
Oh, I'm sure.
But thankfully, he had Nick in his corner, and that's definitely something always good to have, knowing, especially someone as successful as Nick.
Yeah, Tim was an assistant with him for a long time, and then he was fortunate enough to have Nick as a volunteer assistant as well. And certainly, it definitely helps that they had probably very similar philosophies to make that transition a lot smoother than what it could have been.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say I've also been curious about your opinion on this, Coach. The big thing right now that's happening recently is like the NIL stuff. And I don't know. I mean, I can't really blame anybody for wanting to take money, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me, in my humble opinion. I don't know. It's like, how do you, I guess as a coach, like how do you try to teach kids, like, try to stay, centered, I guess is the best word I can describe, like, especially in times like this, like, how do you coach that?
Well, I'll start off. I'll start off with a story about Nick Singleton, just because. I mean, don't get me wrong. Nick Singleton's got a nice NIL deal. He does, but he had so much money thrown at him over the last 2 years, and for him to stay at Penn State is loyalty beyond measure. And you can, people can say, oh well, he should stay. Money shouldn't be an issue. Well, put yourself in the position of a 21-year-old who, is going to, who has the opportunity to earn an extra $1 million for 1 year versus what he was doing. And honestly, there isn't a person listening to this podcast that wouldn't have bolted for that money. I don't care what people say. Money talks. And so you end up getting a situation that's probably more like NFL free agency than anything else. And, it's tough to manage. And I think to myself, how hard it must be to coach in a big time college program, because you have some guys that are there that are making millions in NIL money. And then you got some other guys that are just walk-ons, and there's jealousy there. It happens. I mean, it's unfortunately human nature, and the more mature you are, maybe you deal a little bit better with it. But I mean, put yourself in the shoes of 18 to 21-year-olds. It's tough. And what people don't understand is that there are NIL policies for high school. I mean, there are high schoolers that are making big money.
Yeah.
Nobody on our team, and certainly not the coaches. But I mean, if our guys, if somebody were to approach our players and ask them to do a commercial to promote something, and they could pay them for it, they're certainly within they're certainly within their means to do so. And so it's something that you as a coach have to try to manage as best you can. But I mean, I don't know how they do it. I mean, if I don't know how much you follow Nick Saban, but he never said it. But I feel like the reason that he got out of college coaching was the wild west of the NIL. It's certainly it's difficult to manage, and I felt like he lost a lot of control whenever that came about. And I do think he enjoys himself as an analyst, but it's just another it's another block in the wall that you have to come over. You have to hurdle it and hopefully move on. And it takes a special kind of coach to be able to manage all that and still win and keep everybody focused on the main goal.
Yeah, and for the record, I don't necessarily hate people that want to, like, if you got a chance to make money, I don't blame you for doing that.
No, I don't either.
I think my concern when it comes to the NIL stuff is, like, people become like too greedy, and then like they kind of go away from what they got going for them in the first place. Like, because one of the things that I started noticing, like, you could have a kid that's making like $500,000, which is more money than what most people probably will see in their lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
And he could have an incredible year. But then here comes this, like, a bigger program, be like, oh, we can give you $2 million. And then he's just gone. But then he may not be the same player then afterwards too.
Yeah, and so what ends up happening is, you get a player that's playing for the right reasons, and then all of a sudden somebody comes around and offers them money, and now maybe they're playing for the wrong reasons. And I was watching a little bit of the Little League World Series before we got on, and they were talking to some Mets players, and the one I believe they were talking to at this point was, I can't remember if it was Brandon Nimmo or if it was Jeff McNeil or Pete Alonso. I think it might have been Pete Alonso, and somebody said, and so they were asking him about playing. How do you stay focused? And he said, you got to have fun. He said, if you're not having fun, then why play? You always have to have that on the forefront. And so regardless of what sport it is, like we grew up with that as a game, and I think that part needs to be kept in perspective. I mean, even though, yes, you are financially setting yourself up for good things in the future, and that's wonderful. If people, I feel like players, it doesn't matter the level. I mean, college or pro. I mean, I feel like whatever money they can get, they go get, and I would never hold that against them. But at the same time, if you lose the reason why you're there in the first place, I think that's when things tend to go south. And so I feel like as a coach, you have to keep things so that way they still have that at the forefront, the fun.
No, amen to that. It is kind of a scary time, and hope and pray that, everything will work out in the end with that. But well, Coach, I guess my last question for you would be, what is your future plans for the program?
So I don't know if you saw this, but maybe not necessarily my specific team, but we are looking to try to start a junior high baseball program. I don't know if there was an article in the Sentinel about this. Greg Williams did one a couple of weeks, but was it last? It was actually this past Monday. And so, this is something that we've talked about for a few years. And the good news is we feel like we would be able to do it in conjunction with Babe Ruth rather than in place of. And I'm sure that, there's probably some scuttlebutt out there that says that, well, if there's going to be junior high baseball, that means Babe Ruth's going to go away. Not necessarily. No, that's not the idea. But it's going to give kids an opportunity to play baseball scholastically against other teams of their age, and so it has to maintain club status for 2 years, which means that we have to basically self-fund everything. So the team itself would pay their transportation, their uniforms, the busing, equipment, whatever they need. They have to pay for that for a couple of years before the school would take it on as a full-time sport. So that right now is probably the biggest thing on our plate. And I feel like if we can get that established, I think that'll be really, really big for us. But that's probably like I said, as far as my future plans for the program, that right now is taking up the majority of my time as far as coaching. Although we are, now that school's getting ready to start, we are going to do some open fields and a little bit of hitting this fall to try to keep our guys a little bit fresh before we really start getting into the nitty gritty in the winter.
Well, I hope and pray that you continue to find success, Coach. And again, I really appreciate you coming on, and I thank you for really everything in my life right now. And I can't thank you enough. I don't know if I can ever thank you enough, Coach.
Well, I certainly appreciate the kind words, and anybody listening to that kind of stuff, if you find somebody out there that you do something for, if somebody does something nice for you, paying it forward is certainly a good way to live your life, and it's very fulfilling, and it's very rewarding, and to see you have the success that you're having now, Josh, that really makes my heart happy. It really does, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be on here with you.
I really appreciate that, Coach, and hopefully, I try to continue to build and build. That's kind of my goal.
Yep, keep persevering.
Amen. I appreciate that, and once again, I thank you so much, and I hope and pray for you to have continued success, Coach. And to everyone watching, I love you all. God bless. Be safe, everybody.
Thanks, Josh.